My grandfather was right. Resistance ain't no stage performance, no curtain call, no script. Got heroes though. They're not all coming in hot on white horses, loud, armed, and obvious, but the story got heroes, my grandfather being one. Let me start over. The word resistance takes you to the 14th century. A French word by birth that means to oppose, to withstand, to hold out against. But we don't recognize these things unless something is on fire. Chapter 1, to hold out against. Poaching began in the 16th century, but yesterday I read an article about elephants being born without tusks. Because evolution is the process of radical change in the interest of one's own survival. Sometimes grow gills, sometimes shed them. You won't be somebody's meal till you figure out how to look like something poisonous to your predator. Till you figure out camouflage. Now you can mimic a mountain, maybe to hunt, maybe to hide from what's hunting you. Maybe you're a carnivore now. Used to be vegan till the fruit got scarce. Who you are changes when you're starving. When you're hunted, that's the point. Elephants been killed for their tusks since before Columbus, so they ain't making them no more. Took them 400 years to communicate this new need and get the body to agree. So now y'all gotta get your ivory some other way. I'm talking about changing DNA to survive what would otherwise make you extinct. That is evolution, and evolution is resistance. Chapter 2, to withstand. Devon's mama was battling an addiction when she was pregnant with him and his twin brother in New York. No help, no rescue missions, no interventions, colonized by an unblessed hunger. She got those babies here. She did that. A year later, a different black mother living in the exact same building jumped off the roof with her twins. I remember the New York Times article, Extinction, see? I'm saying, it's hard to get folks here and it's hard to keep folks here. It's an everyday miracle, so we forget to be astonished. I'm saying to stay in the body and allow it to be impossible is resistance. Chapter 3, to oppose. Like how my mama was diagnosed with MS and talked it down. Chose to commandeer her body differently. She is assembled from whatever allows you that choice, see? Her little brother Joe was diagnosed with lupus the same year. He was 14 years old when he died. His body could not oppose the diagnosis. My mama's body could. She somehow resisted extinction, so now I got a body that does whatever I say. I get it from my mama. But really, it's 1927 and John Carter has just been killed in Little Rock, Arkansas. My grandfather is 15 years old. They found a little white girl dead 4 years earlier, see, so somebody had to pay for that. So 5,000 folk went hunting, found John Carter outside Little Rock, pistol whipped him, dragged him, beat him, and then shot him. They drove him through the city strapped to the hood of a car. They hung him from a light pole, set him on fire. They broke into Bethel AME Church and stole the pews my grandfather sat on with his brothers and Papa Joe every Sunday. They set John Carter on fire, riddled his body with bullets, burned the stolen pews to keep the fire going. Somebody said they took body parts for souvenirs. A man was directing traffic with John Carter's severed arm. My grandfather walked to work the next day, scalpeled against the horrors of the night before, soot and ash complicating the sky from all the black businesses still smoldering. Police picked up a boy on Main Street for selling pictures of John Carter's body for 15 cents a copy. My grandfather worked at a market owned by a white couple who hired him to be an errand boy. His first chore was to cut the binding away from the newspapers delivered that morning and carry them into the store. On the cover of the Arkansas Gazette that day, though, was the lynching photo of John Carter, body mutilated and scorched, stiff with smoke, swollen, distended, and gone. And under that hanging body, posing for the picture with bludgeoning confidence, was the couple my grandfather worked for. The ones whose store he stood in front of, the store he was supposed to walk into. His eyes stinging from the smoke in the air, the smell of burning flesh still stuck to things, and he's standing there, stitching it up, burying the unlanguageable hurt and rage, a heavy hex, all riot and regret, guttural and unborn, howling on the inside, a spell or something like it. Stuffed behind his ribs, blood-stitched boy, always a tourniquet. He managed a morning ma'am and a few yes sirs, and he stayed in his body all day. This is where I remind you about the meaning of resistance. To oppose, to withstand, to hold out against, which is to say, I am assembled from the battalioned heart of a 15-year-old boy in Little Rock, Arkansas, 1927, whose ability to hold out and withstand is the reason I am alive. It's ontological, really. What does your ecosystem require of you? A quality education or a mean right hook? What have you developed or abandoned to avoid extinction? The choice is a choice. Maybe an acre of scattered bone is your inheritance. You making walking sticks or weapons. The community probably needs both. That's the tension. I'm saying extinction destroys a lineage. And a lineage is a tether, a compass, an arrowhead, a cowrie shell, a djembe drum, a turtle shell rattle, a pictograph etched in stone, hieroglyphs that result in a full ride scholarship, because stories etched in rock deserve to be studied, and you want to be an anthropologist. Some folk died before the story was passed on. Some mass graves are underwater. Some mass graves are the water. Let the Atlantic say Ashe. I got at least one superhero in my blood. I know that because I, though middle passaged, exist. Because Grandma Danny didn't die when she was stolen from Guinea at the age of 14. She must have been willing her body in the dark toward a discussion about what could be grown and what should die in the preservation of lineage, because surviving the unsurvivable is resistance. Or maybe it's when Freddie Gray was murdered by Baltimore police and school children fell into the street and the CVS burned and cop cars did too. And SWAT teams with automatic rifles were standing on rooftops, and all the major networks were staged on the sidewalk, and activists had flown in, and curfews were set, and in the thick of it all, 3 black boys playing basketball on an outdoor court, laughing and talking smack, astonishingly free, because laughter is a lineage too. Because joy is resistance when armed men are on the roof. A pickup game in spite of is a movement when the guns are supposed to be the story. Etymology of a gun, noun, Latin to Middle English born, meaning engine of war. If you keep reading, you'll see the word missile, the word explosion too. My sister Alicia was murdered on December 27th last year. That was an explosion. 3 days before that, we were joking on the phone about what a shame it will be when we die, on account of all the beautiful art on our bodies that will go with us, and we were right. Cremating Alicia was like burning a museum. She was my most unkillable friend. I didn't leave my house for weeks, but then I did leave. I do leave, see? I sing what songs I know. My heart keeps working in spite of bullets and what they take. That's defiance. That's resistance. No hashtag for it. The stay and make music anyway magic. That walk on water gene. The anthropomorphic evidence of Musa is how we flex these miracles. The ones that formed us in the bowels of ships and sugarcane and cotton fields and killing fields through famine, disease, and war. Surviving the unsurvivable is resistance, and sometimes it's quiet. That kind of summoning. It's not a CVS burning, it's what you grow in the dark. The prayers you remember when everything is on fire. The pronunciation of your name. A knife in one hand, sage in the other, but mostly it's a 15-year-old boy named after two poets, and that boy made it possible for you to exist by suturing his sadness, though his city was burning when he walked with his head up inside.